House Intelligence Committee. He's sure to face some tough questions on President Trump's controversial allegations that former President Obama wiretapped his Trump Tower offices. Obama has rejected that accusation. So could we finally get some concrete answers on the explosive allegations when Comey testifies? Joining us, New York Times national security reporter Matthew Rosenberg and Naveed Jamali, former FBI double agent and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. Two big powerhouses here. Let's start with you if we can here, Matthew. What's going to happen on Monday? What do you expect James Comey to say?
You know, I think it's a sign of just how convoluted and confused the whole conversation around this Russia issue has become, is that the question for Monday is whether or not Comey and Mike Rogers are going to deny the wiretapping claims that have been made by the White House. All indications we have is that there's no evidence of this. There is that it didn't happen. And, you know, how far will Comey go? What will he be willing to say? What won't he be willing to say? I think this is really the big question hanging over the hearing right now.
Naveed?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the second part of that is there an investigation? Forget the FISA warrant. Is there an investigation to Donald Trump or his associates? And I think that's where we start running into problems. Look, law enforcement loathes actually saying whether there's an investigation. And I think the FBI has been painted into a corner here where they're either going to have to potentially either confirm or deny that there is a larger investigation.
Do you see is there a possibility where James Comey will not answer that question?
Well, I think, yes. I think that in regards to the actual investigation, the larger investigation writ large, I think the FBI has been very carefully trying to avoid answering that question in public. The question about wiretapping, I don't know how you can essentially surgically remove that, because if there was a wiretap, then there was presumably enough evidence to go to a FISA court, and if there wasn't, then you're essentially saying potentially there's not an investigation. So it's a very tricky way to have to answer this. There's no, you know, they're going to have to, essentially, by answering that question, they are addressing the larger question, which we all want to know is there investigation here?
You know, and Matthew, on the outside of these center rings around the wiretap is the Russian connection question. And that really might be the show tomorrow, right? The follow-on questions here, Matt, about that space, not specific necessarily to the wiretap.
It's a tremendously complex and politically complicated issue, because on the one hand, the Republicans in Congress are not eager to get into that issue at all. The Democrats are just excited. That's the first thing they want to do. And if there's no way that Comey wants to get into the details of this investigation in an open hearing. You know, in any regular investigation, they are loath to comment on it while it's happening. In a counterintelligence investigation, it's the last thing they want to do. These things happen in secret. They can take years to yield results. They rarely ever do yield results, let's be honest about that. And so you're going to have the director of the FBI sitting there being asked, is there an investigation? And this is probably the most kind of sensitive investigation the FBI does.
So again, Naveed, moving outside of the wiretapping question, let's say they get past that pretty quickly here, then the questions could be, because they can ask anything they want here, the Russian connection question about the campaign and thereafter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that seems to be the logical extension of where this is going. And I think we're going to have some discussion about that. And again, I think Comey's going to be in a very difficult position, which is, you know, he doesn't want to answer those things. And again, there's counterintelligence operations, there's counterintelligence investigations, and there are also just traditional investigations. And I think, you know, doing this in an open hearing could be frankly problematic.
What would be that question then, Naveed, that you would ask if you were sitting here in this committee meeting here and when listening to the testimony that would directly answer that question that we've had about the Russian connection question?
The first question undoubtedly has to be, is there evidence, have you seen any evidence that would indicate that there was collusion between Trump or his associates and the Russians? I mean, that's at its core, that's the $64,000 question.
Matt?
That is the exact question to ask, but they're going to have follow-ups. They're going to ask specifics about what kind of collusion was there, if there were contacts. Do they represent collusion? Do they represent something else? They want to know about business dealings. You know, we already know that his former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, did have dealings with people in Ukraine. Roger Stone has acknowledged being in contact with Guccifer 2.0, who was the, you know, cutout, such as it was, to help get some of the information from the hacked emails out there. Are these Russian intelligence operatives, were they knowingly in contact with them? These are questions people are going to want to ask, and they're really difficult for for the director of the FBI to answer in the middle of an ongoing investigation. And I can see a lot of evasion taking place and a lot of pointed questions coming at them. And there's also the leak issue, that on the Republican side, they want to know about leaks and why this information is getting in public. And that's going to be an issue that I think is going to come up as well.
Yeah, you know, Naveed, yesterday on the Rachel Maddow show, if you were watching it, you had a former Clinton official breaking down how materials obtained by Guccifer 2.0, which is believed to be related to the Russian government, reportedly ended up in WikiLeaks. And will that be a big headline? Because, again, anything can happen tomorrow. On Monday, excuse me.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, I think we're going to get some answers, but again, just as with the tax returns, we're going to have a lot more questions, and I think that we should prepare ourselves, the public should prepare themselves, that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's left on the table, that Comey isn't going to come out here and necessarily quell the public thirst for information on this. And, you know, look, there's just so many questions here, and at the end of the day, as my panelists indicated, proving this stuff and showing whether there was something illegal that actually happened, these acts may not rise to that level, but man, they sure are politically untenable. But at the end of the day, people still voted for Donald Trump, knowing that he had this baggage coming into the office. So
C-SPAN ratings and MSNBC ratings will be going through the roof tomorrow.
Absolutely.
On Monday. Keep on thinking tomorrow, because I can't wait for it myself. Matthew Rosenberg from the New York Times and former FBI double agent Naveed Jamali. We could talk all day. Thank you so much.